Commander Olivia Wright stood on the bridge of the Earth Alliance vessel Intrepid, her eyes fixed on the view screen as the massive Virathi diplomatic station came into view. The structure was unlike anything humans had built, a spiraling array of gleaming metal and pulsing energy fields that seemed to defy conventional physics. "Nervous?" asked her second-in-command, Lieutenant Frank Morrison. "Cautious," Olivia replied. "The Virathi have been in space for thousands of years longer than us. We're babies compared to them." The year was 2157, and humanity had only established its first colonies beyond the solar system 30 years ago. The Virathi Confederation, by contrast, had ruled this sector of the galaxy for millennia. This meeting would be the first official, diplomatic contact between the two civilizations. Alan Garcia adjusted his formal diplomatic uniform as he prepared to leave the ship. As Earth's chosen representative, the weight of humanity's future rested on his shoulders. "Remember," Olivia said quietly to Alan before he departed, "they agreed to this meeting only after we discovered their observation posts near Alpha Centauri. They've been watching us for decades." Alan nodded. "I know. They don't see us as equals." The shuttle journey to the station was tense. When the doors opened, Alan and his small team were greeted by the sight of 3 Virathi representatives. They stood nearly 7 feet tall, with iridescent scaled skin and 4 arms. Their eyes, 3 per face, blinked independently of each other. "Welcome to Harmony Station," said the central figure in a voice that sounded like stones sliding against each other. "I am Senior Envoy Krelvax. You are permitted to present your case for recognition by the Confederation." Alan stepped forward with practiced confidence. "On behalf of the Earth Alliance, I thank you for this opportunity. We seek peaceful relations and mutual exchange of—" "Your kind has only recently learned to leave your gravity well," interrupted Krelvax. "The committee has questions about your worthiness for formal recognition." For the next 6 hours, Alan endured what felt more like an interrogation than a diplomatic meeting. The Virathi questioned humanity's history of warfare, resource consumption, and technological development. They showed particular interest in human military capabilities. "Your species seems remarkably aggressive for one so physically fragile," noted a Virathi official named Zexatral, who had joined midway through the talks. His tone carried clear disdain. "We prefer to call it adaptability," Alan replied evenly. "Humans have survived against many odds." Zextral's upper eyes narrowed. "Indeed. Like bacteria that survive despite antibiotics. By the day's end, minimal agreements had been reached. The Virathi would permit limited trade with human colonies, but made it clear that certain sectors were forbidden to human expansion." As Alan boarded the shuttle to return to the Intrepid, Olivia's voice came through, his communicator. "How did it go?" "They signed the basic framework agreement," Alan said quietly. "But they don't respect us. They see us as primitive curiosities at best, pests at worst." Back on the Virathi station, Krelvax and Zextral watched the human shuttle depart. "Fascinating creatures," Krelvax observed. "Emotional, yet capable of rudimentary logical thought." Zextral made a gesture of dismissal with his lower arms. "The High Council believes they could become troublesome in a few centuries. Their technological growth rate exceeds prediction models." "Perhaps. But they are contained 2 years past since the first meeting with the Virathi. On Proxima Centauri B, Earth had built a small research outpost despite the tensions. The planet orbited the closest star to Earth's sun, making it strategically important. Dr. Kate Miller walked through the outpost's main lab, checking the work of her team. 30 researchers lived here, studying the strange star systems nearby. The outpost was small but important. Kate took her job as leader very seriously. "Dr. Miller, you need to see this," called Peter Dawson, the team's astrophysicist. His voice had an edge that made Kate hurry over. Peter pointed at his screen. "I've been scanning the outer system and these readings don't make sense." The screen showed unusual energy patterns near the system's edge. "Natural formation?" Kate asked, leaning closer. Peter shook his head. "No way. These are artificial structures, but they're not ours." And they don't match any known Virathi designs either. Kate's stomach tightened. The Virathi had been clear about humans staying out of certain areas, but this outpost was within the agreed boundaries. Still, unknown structures this close to a human base was troubling. Send the data to Earth immediately, she ordered. Use the secure channel. Peter began the transmission, but halfway through, the communication system went dead. What happened? Kate demanded. Something's blocking our signal, said Lisa Hartman, their communications specialist. It's not equipment failure. Something powerful is jamming us. The outpost's alarm suddenly blared. Outside the windows, a massive shadow fell across the landscape as a ship entered orbit. Its design was unmistakable. Virathi. Everyone to emergency stations, Kate ordered, trying to keep her voice steady. This isn't a drill. The outpost's small defense shield activated. Automatically. It wasn't designed for military protection, only for deflecting space debris and radiation. The Virathi ship sent no messages, no demands. It simply opened fire. The first blast weakened the shield. The second tore through the eastern wing of the outpost. Screams echoed through the corridors as sections decompressed. Get everyone to the central lab, Peter shouted. The shielding is strongest there. Kate ran to the communication center, trying again to send a distress call. Nothing went through. As she worked frantically, the doors slid open. 3 Virathi soldiers entered, weapons drawn. This facility violates territorial agreements, said the lead soldier. The High Command has ordered an example be made. There's been a mistake, Kate said, raising her hands. We're within the boundaries set by the treaty. We're a research station, not military. The Virathi commander stepped forward. Kate recognized him from images in their database. Zextral, now promoted to a higher rank since the diplomatic meeting 2 years ago. Your species needs to learn its place, Zextral said coldly. Take the leader. Kill the others. Kate fought as they grabbed her, but their strength was overwhelming. Through the viewports, she saw more Virathi ships arriving. Parts of the outpost were already in flames. In the central lab, Peter heard the Virathi approaching. He quickly sealed the reinforced doors and ushered 17 survivors into the radiation testing chamber. The walls are lead-lined, he explained quietly. There, scanners might miss us. Through a small camera feed, they watched in horror as the Virathi systematically executed everyone they found. On the Virathi command ship, Kate was brought before a broadcasting array. Your transmission will reach every human settlement, Zextral informed her. They will witness what happens to those who challenge the Confederation. The broadcast began, showing Kate's face, bloodied but defiant. What followed would burn into the memory of every human who saw it. The torture was methodical, designed to maximize pain while keeping her conscious. In the hidden chamber back at the outpost, Peter and the survivors watched, unable to help, unable to look away. Tears streamed down their faces. But something else grew alongside their grief, a cold, terrible resolve. When the Virathi finally left, believing all humans dead, Peter emerged with the survivors. He gathered all the data they had collected about the outpost attack, the mysterious structures, and the broadcast. Earth needs to know, he whispered. Everyone needs to know what they did. Ned for now, replied Krelvax. The boundaries we've established will limit their expansion while we assess whether they need more permanent management. And if they cross those boundaries, asked Zexitral, then we will remind them of their place in the natural order, Krelvax said. One does not negotiate with lesser species. One manages them. On the Intrepid, Olivia reviewed the agreement terms with her senior staff. They're underestimating us, she concluded. We should use that to our advantage. Alan nodded grimly. Let them think we're harmless for now. History has shown that's usually a mistake. None of them realized just how prophetic those words would become. The news of the Proxima Centauri massacre spread across Earth and its colonies like wildfire. Homes, schools, and public squares fell silent as the brutal footage of Kate Miller's torture played on screens everywhere. For 3 days, normal life stopped. Grief turned to rage, and rage hardened into something colder and more dangerous. Admiral Henry Clark sat at the head of the large table in Earth Alliance headquarters. His weathered face showed no emotion, but his eyes burned with a quiet intensity. Around him sat the Security Council, 12 men and women representing Earth's united government. The death toll stands at 29, said Defense Minister Elena Diaz. 17 survivors made it back to Earth aboard an emergency shuttle, piloted by Dr. Peter Dawson. And Dr. Miller? Asked the Council President. Elena's jaw tightened. Confirmed dead after the broadcast ended. The room fell silent. Then Henry spoke. The Virathi wanted to send a message. They succeeded, but not the one they intended. He pressed a button, and a holographic display appeared above the table. They believe they've shown us our weakness. Instead, they've revealed theirs. What do you mean? Asked someone. Arrogance, Henry replied. They think they know us. They don't. He nodded to a woman sitting quietly in the corner. Dr. Susan Reyes has something to share. Susan stood. She was the director of the classified Prometheus Protocol, a research division so secret that most people in the room had only heard rumors of its existence. For 10 years, Susan began, we've been developing technologies based on principles the Virathi don't understand. Their science advanced along different paths than ours. What they gained in time, they lost in perspective. She activated her own display, showing schematics that few in the room could comprehend. We've created weapon systems that their sensors can't detect, defenses their weapons can't penetrate. But most importantly, we've mapped their entire communication network. Murmurs filled the room. Susan continued. The Virathi believe we're primitive. They discuss their plans openly because they think we can't listen. What are you suggesting? Asked the Council President. Open war? The Virathi Confederation includes 17 species across hundreds of systems. Not open war, Henry said. Something they won't expect from primitive humans. The doors opened and Peter Dawson entered. His face was gaunt, his eyes hollow from what he had witnessed. Dr. Dawson has agreed to assist us, Henry explained. He's analyzed the data from the structures his team discovered. Peter's voice was steady despite his appearance. Those weren't Virathi structures. They belonged to another species, one the Virathi conquered long ago. They contain historical records that the Virathi have suppressed. He projected images of ancient alien text. This tells how the Virathi rose to power, not through natural evolution, but by stealing technology and destroying its creators. Their entire civilization is built on eliminating potential rivals before they can develop. That's why they attacked us, Susan added. Not because we violated their territory, but because their predictive models showed human innovation outpacing theirs within a century. The Council President looked troubled. We need to be realistic. We can't match their military power. We don't need to, came a new voice. Lieutenant Ryan Kelly had been standing silently by the wall. As Earth's leading expert in unconventional warfare, his presence spoke volumes about the direction Henry was considering. The Virathi expect us to either cower or launch a doomed frontal assault, Ryan said. Their entire military doctrine is based on overwhelming force against Conventi. The news of the Proxima Centauri massacre spread across Earth and its colonies like wildfire. Homes, schools, and public squares fell silent as the brutal footage of Kate Miller's torture played on screens everywhere. For 3 days, normal life stopped. Grief turned to rage, and rage hardened into something colder and more dangerous. Admiral Henry Clark sat at the head of the large table in Earth Alliance headquarters. His weathered face showed no emotion, but his eyes burned with a quiet intensity. Around him sat the Security Council, 12 men and women representing Earth's united government. The death toll stands at 29, said Defense Minister Elena Diaz. 17 survivors made it back to Earth aboard an emergency shuttle piloted by Dr. Peter Dawson. And Dr. Miller? Asked the Council President. Elena's jaw tightened. Confirmed dead after the broadcast ended. The room fell silent. Then Henry spoke. The Virathi wanted to send a message. They succeeded, but not the one they intended. He pressed a button and a holographic display appeared above the table. They believe they've shown us our weakness. Instead, they've revealed theirs. What do you mean? Asked someone. Arrogance, Henry replied. They think they know us, they don't. He nodded to a woman sitting quietly in the corner. Dr. Susan Reyes has something to share. Susan stood. She was the director of the classified Prometheus Protocol, a research division so secret that most people in the room had only heard rumors of its existence. For 10 years, Susan began, we've been developing technologies based on principles the Virathi don't understand. Their science advanced along different paths than ours. What they gained in time, they lost in perspective. She activated her own display, showing schematics that few in the room could comprehend. We've created weapon systems that their sensors can't detect, defenses their weapons can't penetrate, but most importantly, we've mapped their entire communication network. Murmurs filled the room. Susan continued. The Virathi believe we're primitive. They discuss their plans openly because they think we can't listen. What are you suggesting? Asked the council president. Open war? The Virathi Confederation includes 17 species across hundreds of systems. Not open war, Henry said. Something they won't expect from primitive humans. The doors opened and Peter Dawson entered. His face was gaunt, his eyes hollow from what he had witnessed. Dr. Dawson has agreed to assist us, Henry explained. He's analyzed the data from the structures his team discovered. Peter's voice was steady despite his appearance. Those weren't Virathi structures. They belonged to another species, one the Virathi conquered long ago. They contain historical records that the Virathi have suppressed. He projected images of ancient alien text. This tells how the Virathi rose to power, not through natural evolution, but by stealing technology and destroying its creators. Their entire civilization is built on eliminating potential rivals before they can develop. That's why they attacked us, Susan added. Not because we violated their territory, but because their predictive models showed human innovation outpacing theirs within a century. The council president looked troubled. We need to be realistic. We can't match their military power. We don't need to, came a new voice. Lieutenant Ryan Kelly had been standing silently by the wall. As Earth's leading expert in unconventional warfare, his presence spoke volumes about the direction Henry was considering. The Virathi expect us to either cower or launch a doomed frontal assault, Ryan said. Their entire military doctrine is based on overwhelming force against conventional targets. So, what do you propose? Asked Elena. Henry's reply was simple. We show them that hurting humans was the worst mistake they could have made. The council voted. The decision was unanimous. As the meeting concluded, Linda Powell received encrypted orders at her post in the frontier trading station Nexus 7. For 3 years, she had been building her cover identity, becoming a trusted merchant in Virathi space. Now her real mission would begin. The Virathi had forgotten an ancient truth that humans had learned through countless conflicts. Sometimes the most dangerous enemy isn't the strongest one. It's the one with nothing left to lose. Onal targets. So, what do you propose? Asked Elena. Henry's reply was simple. We show them that hurting humans was the worst mistake they could have made. The council voted. The decision was unanimous. As the meeting concluded, Linda Powell received encrypted orders at her post in the frontier trading station Nexus 7. For 3 years, she had been building her cover identity, becoming a trusted merchant in Virathi space. Now her real mission would begin. The Virathi had forgotten an ancient truth that humans had learned through countless conflicts. Sometimes the most dangerous enemy isn't the strongest one. It's the one with nothing left to lose. 6 months after the Proxima Centauri massacre, the massive Virathi shipyard orbiting the gas giant Krell Zoth hummed with activity. Warships of various sizes were under construction, their hulls gleaming under the work lights. The Virathi had increased production, preparing for what they assumed would be an eventual desperate human attack. In the shipyard's control center, a supervisor noticed an unusual reading on his monitor. "There's an energy spike in Sector 12, he reported. "Likely a sensor malfunction." His superior made a dismissive gesture. "Run a diagnostic. Those systems have been glitching since the last upgrade." Neither of them thought to order a physical inspection. After all, the shipyard's security was considered perfect. No unauthorized vessel could approach without being detected. No alien could pass through their bioscanners. But Ryan Kelly and his team were already inside. Using technology developed by the Prometheus Protocol, their small stealth craft had approached the shipyard by mimicking the exact sensor profile of Virathi maintenance drones. Their suits contained compounds that fooled the bioscanners into registering them as ambient life forms rather than intruders. Ryan led his team through a maintenance shaft, guided by the detailed schematics provided by Linda Powell. They moved with practiced precision, placing small devices at key structural points throughout the facility. "Beta team in position," came a whispered report through their secure comm system. "Quantum destabilizers placed in the power core." "Gamma. Team, status?" Ryan asked quietly. 5 minutes behind schedule. Security patrol in our sector." Ryan checked the countdown timer on his wrist display. "Acceptable delay. Primary targets are priority." In the diplomatic quarter of the Virathi capital world, Linda Powell attended a trade reception. She smiled and made small talk with officials, the perfect image of a human merchant seeking to improve relations. Her presence there would establish her alibi. More importantly, it would put her in position to observe the Virathi leadership's immediate reaction to what was about to happen. She checked her timepiece casually. 30 minutes until the operation began. On the human colony world New Terra, citizens gathered for a memorial service marking 6 months since the Proxima Centauri incident. Admiral Henry Clark delivered a speech that was broadcast across human space. "Today we remember not only those we lost," he said solemnly, "but also what their sacrifice has taught us. The universe is not always kind, not always just, but humans have never accepted cruelty as the natural order." As he spoke, every Virathi intelligence operative listening believed his words were merely comfort for a defeated species. None recognized it as the announcement it truly was. Back at the shipyard, Ryan's team completed their work and began withdrawal. One by one, the small teams returned to their hidden craft and departed, leaving no trace of their presence. Just as the last team cleared the shipyard's sensor range, Ryan activated the signal. The quantum destabilizers were unlike any weapon the galaxy had seen before. They didn't explode in the conventional sense. There was no blast, no fire, no shockwave. Instead, reality itself seemed to shudder. The fabric of space-time within the shipyard began to unravel like a poorly woven cloth. Matter didn't burn or break. It simply ceased to exist in a coherent form. The effects spread outward from each device. The Virathi High Council chamber had never felt so tense. For the first time in living memory, the 17 representatives sat in uneasy silence rather than confident debate. "How is this possible?" demanded Councillor Zex Nal, slamming all 4 hands onto the table. "Humans are barely space-capable. They cannot possess technology that surpasses our understanding." High Councillor Vexkar looked older than he had a week ago. Yet they do. The shipyard is gone. Not destroyed. Erased. Our best scientists cannot even approach the affected region. Fleet Commander Tren Lox stepped forward, his military posture rigid. "We must respond with overwhelming force. I have mobilized our main battle groups. We will crush every human settlement, every outpost, every ship." "And if they have more of these weapons?" asked a quieter voice. Councillor Mirsal was the oldest member, known for caution. "What if attacking them triggers more of these reality failures?" No one had an answer. Elsewhere in the galaxy, Admiral Henry Clark's strategy unfolded like a carefully played chess game. Earth hadn't declared war. They hadn't announced any demands. They simply began the next phase of Operation Silent Judgment. Every Virathi supply ship that entered hyperspace found itself exiting at random coordinates, far from its destination. Communication relays throughout Virathi space began transmitting, garbled messages or falling silent entirely. Navigation beacons gave false readings, sending ships dangerously off course. The beauty of asymmetric warfare, Ryan Kelly explained to his growing team, is that the bigger they are, the harder they fall. His operatives moved invisibly through Virathi space, placing small devices on key infrastructure. These weren't weapons, not exactly. They were what Dr. Susan Reyes called chaos engines, technology that interfered with Virathi systems in ways that seemed almost like bad luck. In her lab, Susan monitored the effects. Their entire civilization depends on predictability and control, she told Peter Dawson, who had joined the Prometheus team. Take that away, and their advantage of size becomes a disadvantage. Peter nodded, understanding. They can't fight what they can't find or understand. Meanwhile, Linda Powell continued her work deeper in Virathi territory. Her trading company now supplied critical parts to repair the increasingly frequent equipment failures throughout the Confederation. Each replacement part contained nearly undetectable modifications that would cause new problems months later. But her most valuable contribution was information. At a high-level meeting of Virathi military suppliers, she recorded a stunning conversation. "The humans have made no demands," said a frustrated Virathi commander. "They've sent no ships against us. How do we fight an enemy that doesn't engage?" Perhaps, suggested another. "We should offer reparations for the Proxima incident. It was excessive." "Weakness," hissed a third. "The moment we acknowledge error, we invite more aggression." Linda transmitted the recording to Earth. It confirmed what Admiral Clark had predicted: the Virathi were fracturing from within. On the Virathi homeworld, High Counselor Vex Carr faced growing pressure. Member species of the Confederation were questioning Virathi leadership for the first time in centuries. Trade disruptions were causing food shortages on several worlds. Military patrols returned with reports of ghost ships that appeared on sensors, but vanished when approached. "The humans are primitive," Vex Carr insisted to his increasingly skeptical council. "This must be a temporary advantage, some technology they stumbled upon by accident." But in private, doubt gnawed at him. The humans weren't behaving like primitives. They weren't behaving like any species the Virathi had ever conquered. There was a calculating patience to their actions that seemed impossible for such an emotional, short-lived species. As his advisors argued about deploying the main fleet to Earth, Vex Carr stared at the image of Kate Miller displayed on his private screen. The human they had tortured as an example. For the first time he wondered if the Virathi had misunderstood something fundamental about humans, and what that might cost his civilization: eating overlapping zones of chaotic spacetime. The shipyard didn't explode. It unmade itself in waves of impossible physics. In the Virathi capital, Linda watched as emergency alerts began flooding in. The composed, confident officials around her transformed before her eyes, their expressions shifting from confusion to disbelief to the beginning of something she had never seen on Virathi faces before: fear. High Counselor Vex Carr stared at the reports in stunned silence. The shipyard, their largest military production facility, was simply gone. Not destroyed in any way their sensors could understand, but converted into a region of space that defied analysis. And the message that followed, broadcast on all Virathi frequencies using their own encryption, was as simple as it was chilling. "This is our warning. There will be only one." 1 year after the destruction of the shipyard, the Virathi Confederation was barely holding together. What had begun as minor disruptions had grown into a crisis that touched every part of their society. On the Virathi colony world Nexus Prime, angry crowds gathered outside government buildings. The protesters weren't humans. They were Torelli, one of the junior species in the Confederation. "The Virathi promised protection," shouted their leader. "Now our ships vanish, our communications fail, and they do nothing but hide behind their defenses." Similar scenes played out across a dozen worlds. The carefully maintained image of Virathi invincibility had cracked, and centuries of resentment from conquered species bubbled to the surface. In the High Council chamber, the mood was grim. 3 seats stood empty. Their representatives had withdrawn from the Confederation, choosing to seek separate peace with the humans. "The main fleet is assembled and ready," announced Fleet Commander Tren Lox. "We will strike Earth directly and end this shadow war." High Counselor Vexkar looked unconvinced. "And your ships can reach Earth without navigation failures? Without communication blackouts? Without mysteriously disappearing?" Trenlock shifted uncomfortably. "We've implemented new protocols, manual navigation backups, courier ships instead of transmissions." "Primitive methods," observed Counselor Mirsal with bitter irony. "We fight a primitive species by becoming more primitive ourselves." The doors to the chamber burst open. Security guards rushed in, surrounding Zextral, the commander who had ordered the attack on Proxima Centauri and Kate Miller's torture. "What is the meaning of this interruption?" demanded Vexakar. Zextral's eyes darted nervously. "They're everywhere. They've been among us all along." "Who?" asked Vexakar. "Humans, disguised, altered to look like us." Zextral's voice rose to a pitch that shocked the council. Virathi prided themselves on emotional control. "My second-in-command tried to kill me. When security shot him, his appearance changed back to human." The council chamber erupted in chaos. Guards rushed to secure the exits while counselors shouted questions and accusations. Only Vexakar remained silent, a cold realization settling over him. There were no disguised humans. The humans didn't have technology to physically transform themselves into Virathi, but they didn't need it. They only needed the Virathi to believe they did. Fear was doing their work for them. On Earth, Admiral Henry Clark received Linda Powell's latest intelligence report with satisfaction. "The psychological operation is working better than we expected," he told his command staff. "They're starting to see humans in every shadow." "Time for Phase 3? asked Ryan Kelly. Henry nodded. "Reveal our true fleet strength. All ships, all locations, simultaneously." Across Virathi space, sensors suddenly detected hundreds of human vessels appearing from nowhere. They had been there all along, hidden by stealth technology that the Virathi had believed impossible for humans to develop. The ships took no aggressive action. They simply appeared, surrounding major Virathi military installations, positioned near key worlds, hovering at the edge of the Virathi homeworld's sensor range. In the council chamber, reports flooded in of the sudden appearance of the human fleet. Before Vexakar could formulate a response, Zexatral was shot by his own guard. The chamber descended into violence as paranoia and faction fighting erupted. High Counselor Vexkar stood in the Great Hall of Earth Alliance headquarters, surrounded by representatives from every human colony and settlement. His forearms were bound in ceremonial restraints, not for security, but as a symbol. Admiral Henry Clark spoke first. "You asked what we want, if not surrender. We want justice." Vexakar looked around the room, seeing hundreds of human faces all watching him, with the same steady gaze. "What form will this justice take?" "A trial," Henry replied. "Public, transparent, with judges from multiple species, including your own." This was not what Vexakar had expected. The Virathi way was simple. The strong dictated terms to the weak. Victors didn't hold trials, they imposed their will. "And the charges?" he asked. Peter Dawson stepped forward. His eyes met Vexakar's without flinching. "Crimes against sentient beings. The unprovoked attack on Proxima Centauri. The torture and murder of Dr. Kate Miller and 29 others." Vexakar felt a strange emotion he couldn't immediately identify. It took him a moment to recognize it as shame. "Who will stand accused?" he asked quietly. "Those who ordered the attack, those who carried it out, and those who celebrated it," Henry said. "Including you, High Counselor." 2 weeks later, representatives from 27 spacefaring civilizations gathered on neutral ground, a space station built by an ancient species that had evolved beyond physical form millennia ago. The trial was broadcast to every world in the galaxy with communication technology capable of receiving it. The evidence was presented methodically. Peter Dawson's recordings from Proxima Centauri, Linda Powell's intelligence from within Virathi space, historical records showing the Virathi pattern of eliminating potential rivals before they could develop. When the prosecution showed the footage of Kate Miller's torture, many in the chamber had to look away, but the human representatives watched unflinchingly, bearing witness to the end. The defense argued that the Virathi had acted according to their cultural norms, to protect their civilization's security. Susan Reyes countered this argument with quiet precision. Cultural norms do not justify cruelty. The capacity to dominate does not confer the right to do so. The verdict came after 7 days of testimony. Guilty. But the sentence surprised everyone, especially the Virathi. Those responsible will help rebuild the Proxima Centauri outpost, announced the lead judge. They will live there, working alongside humans, for a period of 10 Earth years. They will learn what they destroyed. Vexakar was the first to be led away. As he passed Peter Dawson, he paused. "Why did you not simply destroy us?" he asked. "You had the power, the weapons, the right of vengeance." Peter's answer was simple. "Because that's not who we are. Destroying you would have been easy. Making you understand that's justice." 1 year later, Peter visited the rebuilt Proxima Centauri outpost. Former Fleet Commander Trenlox was carefully tending the memorial, garden planted in honor of Kate Miller and the others who had died. "I don't understand your species," Trenlox admitted when he saw Peter. "You could have taken our worlds, enslaved our people, as we would have done to you. That would have made us like you," Peter replied. "Our vengeance wasn't about destruction. It was about transformation." He looked out at the stars, thinking about the changes the trial had sparked across the galaxy. The Virathi Confederation had reformed into a true alliance of equals. Other species now sought human guidance and partnership rather than dominance over each other. "The most powerful weapon humans have isn't technology," Peter said. "It's our capacity to choose a better way, even when the easy path lies open before us." Trenlox considered this. "We hurt one human, and in response you changed the galaxy." Peter nodded. "That's what vengeance really means to us. Not an ending, but a beginning." Above them, the stars continued their ancient dance, unchanged, yet viewed through new eyes. When order was finally restored, Zexatral was dead. Half the council was demanding immediate surrender to the humans. The other half insisted on a suicidal last stand. Vexkar made his decision. "Prepare a diplomatic vessel," he ordered. "I will go to Earth myself." "You would surrender?" asked Trenlox in disbelief. "I would prevent extinction," Vexakar replied. As his ship prepared to depart, a message arrived from Earth. It contained only 5 words that chilled him to his core. "We don't want your surrender.